Okay? It's not the time for it, yani. Bismillah. Can you please discuss the concept of ferasa? So ferasa in the Arabic language, the English translation for it is more like insight. Somebody who has an insight, intuition. That's what they call ferasa over here. And the meaning of it is someone has the ability to read people without even saying a word. Like you look at somebody, you can tell if this person is honest or lying. You can tell this person is brave or otherwise. You can feel, right? You see them moving in a certain way, you know if they're nervous or otherwise. You can read people in a specific way. And that's something, the firasa also comes in two ways, whether acquired, whether actually gifted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like some people being given this sense of firasa. Like Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He was mulham from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has given him this insight deeply, radiallahu anhu. He knows how to read the people and how to know things. Other people, they take it, of course, through practice. How is that? You can, through reading and learning and studying, of course, akhlaq al-nas, people's etiquette and so on, reading about, human behavior and so on. So you can tell. Nowadays, even you have books that teach you about body language. If a person holding his hand like this, what does it mean? Holding like that, whatever that is, right? You can teach you that stuff. So that's part of the firasa as well, too. Also, sitting with the hukama and the ulama and people of wisdom who can tell you things. So you can read people, through, of course, practice and also through learning about human akhlaq and manners and so on. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in the hadith, قال اتقوا فراسة المؤمن فلينظر بنور الله. Beware of the mu'min's firasa, because Allah, he sees by the light of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yani, don't try to follow believer, Jama'ah. It's hard. Does the husband inherit if the woman passes away during the iddah after a khulu' or fasakh? Is he still considered the husband during that iddah? If it was a iddah of khulu', then he doesn't inherit, because the iddah of the khulu' is talaqun ba'in, and anything that is ba'in, which means irrevocable, then it ends the relationship. So therefore, he doesn't inherit. But if it was talaq adi, raj'i, during that iddah, he's still a husband, they can reconcile after that. Fasakh, it depends. If the aib was from him, was from her, depends on circumstances. Now, if someone gives part of their estate as a gift to their kids while they are alive, but verbally not doing the actual paperwork, should that estate be distributed as part of the inheritance? Well, if he gave that gift during their lifetime and his lifetime, when he is healthy and wealthy and with his full faculty of the mind, they are allowed to distribute whatever they want as gift. We don't call it inheritance, though. They're just giving gifts. And Islamically, these gifts, you don't have to give them in accordance with inheritance law. You can give them equally. You can give them to someone needs more than the other one, depends on their circumstances. So it doesn't follow the rules of inheritance, because you're not giving inheritance. But if someone wants to give during their lifetime gift to their kids in accordance with inheritance rules, it's up to them. I highly recommend that you document everything, so that after laqadallah death, people will start disputing that stuff. So if you say it's verbal, okay, who is going to testify for that? What if someone denies it? What if someone forgot? So if there is no proof, then the assumption there is no such thing until you prove it through witnesses or through documentation. But yeah, if the person does it during their lifetime, it counts as gifts. It doesn't have to be in an accordance to the inheritance law. But fairness is very important. Like you give fair distribution to your children. Let's say one of them is married and he has, mashallah, many kids, and they might need more money. It's okay to give them something more, versus someone who's just single, still in college, doesn't need much money, for example, and so on. Different. So you can distribute accordingly. What about the inheritance of illegitimate children? They don't receive from the inheritance. They don't receive from the inheritance. But they can be included in the wasiyah if a person wants to give them something. Does the second wife has equal share? She has equal share that she shares with the wives altogether. Whether it's 1, 2, or 3, or 4, they all share equally, 1/8 or 1/4, depends on the case. Even if she married the deceased guy for a week, even if it was for a day. I hope she didn't kill him, though. But even if it was for a very short time, if it was a valid nikah, khalas, then you should be receiving inheritance. We talked about non-Muslim and non-relatives. That doesn't actually work like that. Again, it is a case-by-case scenario. So we say that maximum 1/3. You mentioned 1/3 maximum. What was that for? That's for the wasiyah. Like if you're going to be given somebody who is not a legitimate heir, let's say a friend, a cousin, you want to give to the masjid, you want to give to anything, you only are allowed to give up to 1/3. You can't give somebody who receives through inheritance though. Like you don't give your son an extra third. You cannot do that. But you can give it to somebody who doesn't receive. Ulul arham, they can receive, for example. You have a great-grandmother, for example. You have a great-grandkids, or maybe grandkids from a deceased son, or from a deceased daughter. You can give them from the wasiyah, but that wasiyah should not exceed 1/3 of the entire inheritance. Are there any online calculator that can do the shares for us? Yes, there is actually. You can look up online, inshallah. There are many actually calculators over there. Look for Islamic wills and so on. They will have their calculators there. However, I highly recommend for you to learn it yourself. Actually, in inheritance, the ulama, they will teach, and we learned that in Medina as well too. It says, you're not going to be a good calculator of inheritance until you kill all your family. What does that mean? Basically, it means write all your relatives on paper and start making cases. If this dies, what happens? Okay. If this one dies, what happens? So you're going to kill all your relatives to basically kind of see who receives what and what they receive what. Which is true, actually. I did that, as a matter of fact. We all did it, subhanAllah. Yeah, because you want to exercise, you want to practice. So I don't know people. Let me know who's alive, who's not. So I highly recommend that you learn it yourself now. So my father-in-law's wealth isn't distributed properly among his heirs. My mother-in-law didn't receive her share. Is it my duty to give her from what we received, especially if my husband is reluctant? Well, look, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me, Rabbil Alamin. Wallahi, this is dangerous, ya Jama'ah. Wallahi, it's extremely so dangerous. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whoever actually takes an inch of earth, for example, property that is not yours, طوقه يوم القيامة من سبع أراضين. It's going to come choking you on the day of judgment around your neck in Jahannam, nasallallahu al-afiyah. And dirham haram, it will spoil all the barakah of your life. So don't do this to each other, ya Jama'ah. So yeah, if the mother did not receive her inheritance from her deceased husband, her children are obliged to give her inheritance. If your husband is willing to give, he gives only his part in her inheritance. Like if we calculate her inheritance, how much would she receive? He gives his portion, because it depends on how many siblings he has. So my share from that, all of it is, for example, $3,000. That's my share from it. You give her the $3,000, you're done. You don't have to give her the entire inheritance because it's not in your hand. You give her only your share. If the husband is reluctant and you would like to do it on your own without his knowledge, I mean, honestly, it's her haqq, the mother's haqq, no doubt about it. Yani. And I don't know if it's going to cause any trouble or not, but you can if you want to. Naam. Okay, so how do you calculate the fractional shares for the wife and parents when the deceased is survived by both a son, a daughter, a wife, parent? Should the children's share be calculated or deducted before calculating the shares for the wife and parents? How? We can't, we want to do it until you first do the shares. So the boy and the girl, they receive by ta'asib. Because she has a brother, so she's going to take by ta'asib, right? She's not going to take by shares anymore. So we give the shares to those who are survived. So first of all, you have the wife. She will get, how much does she get, a Jama'ah? 1/8, because they have kids, right? So the wife gets 1/8. The mom and dad get what? 1/6 each, because they have kids. So 1/6 each. So therefore, we have The common denominator among the 8 and the 6 is what? 24. So we're going to divide the entire inheritance to 24 shares. The wife takes how many shares? 1/8, which is what from the 24, Jama'ah? 3. She takes 3 shares. The mom and dad each will take 4, because that's their share, 4 and 4. So we have 3 plus 8, that's 7. Take this out of 24. How much is that? Ya Jama'ah. 17, right? 17 is left for the boy and the girl. The ذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. So the boy takes double the share of his sister out of that, whatever that is. And then you go to see what is it exactly that falls under these shares. He has $500,000, 2 houses, cars, whatever that is. All the value of these things fall under 24 shares. And the wife will take 3, the mother 4, the father 4, and the kids, they will receive the 17. Now, 4 for each. Oh, what did I say? Did I say it? That's 7? Okay, so sorry, that's 11 then. You're right, absolutely, you're right. So 8 plus 3, that's 11. Take that out of 24. So that's okay. That's when we go back to 13 then. And then we divide that between the brother and the sister. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feekum. So I cannot inherit from a non-Muslim relative. I'm the only Muslim in my family. That's something you need to talk to me personally about it. We can discuss that inshallah ta'ala in details later. Okay, people now sending me their family cases. This is what happened to us. Tell me about that. Man, I can't answer the. Come on, Jama'ah. I can't answer these cases. Each case is unique over here. If both parents passed away, leaving 1 son and 3 daughters, they're married. The son also lives in the house left by the parents. The daughters are struggling financially. There are also 2 uncles and their kids. All uncles are well-to-do. Will there be an exception to the distribution? No. Now, I don't know who died first, because if you don't know who, there are certain cases in inheritance when, for example, they call them al-gharqa, al-hadma, like if they all die in one incident, car accident, they all died. We don't know who died first. So therefore, we consider them all died at the same time. But how are you going to distribute that? There's a specific rule for that. There is also mutanasikhat. When a person dies, while you're trying to calculate the inheritance from the one who died before. Like, for example, people, they died in car accident, or they have a car accident. One died on the scene, the other one in the hospital. So I would try to calculate, for example, the inheritance from the one who died. The other person dies in the process. Okay, so we have 2 dead right now. A 3rd person dies. So you have multiple people, they called mutanasikhat as well too. Like multiple cases at the same time. There's specific rules for all of this. So I don't know who died before who over here. But overall, if the house was owned by the parents or one of them, eventually, since they're both passed, all the shares in the house goes to the children. So 3 sisters, 1 boy. So the boy takes 2 shares. The girl's 1 share. Then we talk about 5 shares. The boy takes 2 shares, and the girl takes 1 share each. Uncles, they have nothing, unless that house belongs to the grandfather. If that's the case, we're going to have to go all the way back there and see what's their share in the house as well too. So I don't know what the situation here, but there is no exception in the distribution. How do we navigate where legally they need to give all to the wife or children, the inheritance in U.S. law? That's why we encourage the Muslims, while you're still, alhamdulillah, healthy and wealthy and in good mind, you write your Islamic will, or at least put your wealth in a trust and put that in an estate that should be distributed in according to the Islamic system. So if laqada something happens, at least everything will be preserved and distributed accordingly, inshallah ta'ala. I have a stepfather who wants to give me inheritance. I have 2 stepsisters and a half-brother. How would it be divided? You don't get anything from the inheritance. You can get from the wasiyah. Like he can gift you from the wasiyah up to 1/3. Up to 1/3. As for the stepsisters and the half-brother, those are his kids. So they receive the inheritance from him directly. But you don't receive inheritance from a stepfather. You only receive it through wasiyah as a gift. That's all. What happens when son takes the majority share, but the sisters take care of mother? Son does not want to take financial responsibility. There is Allah to hold him accountable for it. I mean, if he doesn't want to do it, that doesn't relieve him from the responsibility. Why do you think the men usually in inheritance take more than the women? Our ulama, they say because of the responsibility, وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ, that they're financially responsible. So if the person has taken his haqq fully from the inheritance, but is not doing his duty towards the mother or the father, that's a sin. And Allah will hold him accountable for it. If your brother chose to disobey Allah in the way he treats your mom, you need to still obey Allah in the way you treat your mom. Don't worry about what he's doing. Worry about what you're doing. Wallahu alam. Do the husband and children of a deceased daughter receive inheritance from the daughter's father? Okay, that's complicated now. Husband and children of a deceased daughter, okay, receive inheritance from the daughter's. Oh, I see. So if the grandfather dies, that's the father of the deceased girl. She left a husband and children. If her father dies, do her kids receive from their grandfather? Now, her husband receives nothing. It's not his business. But her children, do they receive anything? What's the rule, Jama'ah, over here? If he has a son, that son blocks all these kids. And even if he doesn't have a son, usually actually he is blocked. Or these kids are blocked. Why? Because they lead to the deceased through what? A female, not a male. So if he had no other children, but he has brothers, which would be the uncle, the grand uncle of these kids, he actually more worthy to take that money than they are. So if they will receive anything, they receive something through the inheritance, through the wasiyah. And the hadith we're going to be studying, inshallah ta'ala, talks about this. Do these kids receive anything if no one else eligible for it? Like there's no brothers, no other sons, anybody male that's close to them. The only next male is from Dawil Arham. Not Fard, not Asaba, Arham, which means father kinship. So that's what the argument is among the ulama on these matters. Now. What should one do if one inherits, has portion of riba or non-halal money in general? Like if the riba was accumulated during the waiting period as they distribute the inheritance, should be taken out. But if that riba was the money collected by the deceased during his lifetime, so now once the person dies, that money moves to you. It moves to you halal. لهم الغرم لهم الغرم ولكم الغنم. You get the gain, they get the liability, Allah al-Musta'an. Because that money transferred into your hand in a halal way. Now, still though, there's an element of wara, which means piety. If you don't want to get it, just don't take it if you don't want to. Can we do intensive, maybe 1 or 2 sessions, full details of inheritance? Inshallah. It's fun, isn't it, Jama'ah? Oh Lord, I love the inheritance, subhanAllah. It's amazing. Verbal will at death. What if someone distributes differently than what is recommended and it's done verbally? For example, they say, at the time of my death, please give 50% to my daughter, 50% to my son. If the person does that, even if it wasn't writing, that doesn't just have to be in verbal. If it wasn't writing, even if it wasn't writing, it will be null. Islamically speaking, that wasiyah will be null, and everybody's share will be reduced to the Islamic system. Like if someone says, give my brother, who is not even an heir, give my brother 50% of my wealth. What do we do in this situation? We cancel it completely? We give them 1/3. We bring him down to 1/3, to the max of what he can get. That's all. No. Is it unfortunate if you don't leave behind inheritance because you've always lived in poverty? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the ghina of this dunya and the akhirah, ya Rabbil Alameen. I mean, not everybody really leaves anything behind. But you still have so much to give and leave behind for your family. Your reputation, your taqwa, their adab, their akhlaq, so much you can, wallahi, that makes them rich more than having wealth that they don't even know what to do with it. But if you really treat them well and give them the akhlaq and the adab, you give them the best gift of their life in this dunya and the akhirah. Allah make us some of those, ya Rabbil Alameen. Can the siblings agree to equally share inheritance regardless of male or female? After they know exactly how much everybody gets. When they know how much everybody gets, they would say, you know what, I don't need that much money really, just I'll give my sisters half of it, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, I have enough, I'll give it to my sister. That's okay. Because if you say, yes, they can, and then they realize that their dad, he was actually, mashallah, stacking millions under the carpet, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was actually $5 million. No, I need my money. So no, they need to know how much they're getting, and only then they can reconcile if they want to after that. But it has to be actually, everybody should agree to it, without forcing anybody. Or, say, fil haya, meaning kind of like, passive-aggressive, pushing them towards agreeing without wanting to agree in the first place. Okay, so anybody has a very special case related to family issues, I don't want to answer this publicly, better come to me inshallah ta'ala afterwards, inshallah. If the house needs to be divided, like into 24 shares, must they sell the house or does the occupant owe you rent? If you want to keep it and if everybody agrees and you're going to get the rent, in this case, you basically distribute the rent amongst yourselves. Or if all the siblings say, you know what, let the rent go to my mom. That's fine, we don't want the money. They can agree to that, inshallah. But they still have their share in the house itself, for example. And if they want to get each other out of that share, they can buy their shares from each other. They say, hey man, how much is your share? $15,000? Here you go. I'll give you $20,000. Just leave the house. They can buy each other out of the property, inshallah. That should be okay. Wallahu alam. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام ورحمة الله.